This is Lauren Greci, and you're listening to the Go and Tell podcast. Hi, friends. Thank you so much for joining another episode of the Go and Tell podcast. I am thrilled to have a good friend of mine, Jamie Kelley, today. So, Jamie, hi, welcome to the Go and Tell podcast.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for taking time out of our days. We were just talking about our kiddos because it's 10 a.m. on a weekday in summer. And so like my two boys are watching a movie and eating all the snacks, and we will see if we can get through this without a child bursting through the doors.
Exactly.
All right, Jamie, so why don't you take a second and introduce yourself to all the viewers and listeners?
Okay, my name is Jamie Kelley. Live in the Dallas area. We've been here for 12 years now, I think. No, 2012, so almost 10 years. Almost 10 years. I have been married for almost 14. We have 4 children. They are 12, 9, 3, and 6 months old. So we're all over the place. We're scattered. Yeah, and that's pretty much my life right now. I've been a stay-at-home mom since we've been in Dallas, so for 10 years or so.
Yeah. And your husband, I mean, y'all are very active in the sports realm too, right? Because he does select soccer coaching.
He coaches soccer. Yeah, so we're about to transition into academy because of the age of our kids. But yes, we do a lot of soccer stuff, and so we're busy all the time.
Yeah,
it's never ending. Any weekend we have available, we'll either do a scrimmage or a tournament or something else. So
that's exciting. Now, you and I have chatted before about your testimony and your walk with the Lord, and you have a really incredible story just that shows God's provision and his guidance, his faithfulness, and how he has helped you through a lot of situations and stuff. But before we get into that, you and I, did we first meet through VBS?
Through VBS.
Okay. I was trying to recall, was it like if it was that, because in our church we're both so active. Absolutely. It's like, was it VBS, was it a life group, was it MOPS? Like what was it? Because there's so many things. But yeah, you are a pretty incredible person, so I've enjoyed walking with you. So so let's back up. Let's start with your childhood. Did you feel like you always had the strong faith, or has it something that's kind of developed over time?
It actually, I grew up in a Catholic family, and so I was aware of church. I knew of Jesus. I did the things. I made my confirmation, that sort of thing. But I never really had a relationship with Christ at all. I didn't know it was personal. I thought it was just a checklist to do. You just went sometimes and wore itchy dresses, and it was uncomfortable. But we didn't ever go regularly, and so. And that was probably until I was about 10. And then after 10, we never went at all. And so I didn't have a relationship with Christ. I didn't have anyone really in my life that would talk to me about those kinds of things. Like there were people who, family members that, would bring it up or mention it or whatnot, but not a whole lot. I had an aunt, actually, she used to take me to VBS all the time. So she was kind of active in that and keeping it alive, I guess, it was still there and I knew of it. And so I was exposed here and there, but I didn't make a personal choice until way later.
So do you mind me asking, why did y'all stop going to church when you were 10?
My parents were divorced at that point, and so the transition from households and things, and they both were working and stuff, and so that kind of just didn't matter until my dad, actually, he would take me to church every time we were with him on the weekends. But again, it was just something to do, and I didn't take it personally. I didn't make it a choice for me.
Right.
We got to go to get Slurpees afterwards, and that was great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's like reward if we went to church.
Reward. If I go and get a Slurpee, and that's good. Yeah.
When did you decide to make it more personal and that you realize that this is a whole lot more than just checking off boxes?
That actually, it was kind of a slow burn. When we realized we were having our first child, I had this kind of moment of, when I found out it was a girl, I'm about to have a daughter. And who is she going to be? Like, who do I need to be for her? And it was a whole kind of thought process of thinking like, okay, I don't want her to be like me. I don't want her to grow up the way I grew up. I don't want, all these things I didn't want for her. And so I had to think back, like, who would I like her to be like? Who do I want her friends to be? Who do I want her influences to be? And it reminded me of a few girls that I went to school with, junior high, high school kind of stuff. And what they had in common was that they were very active in their churches and their faith was very strong. And I remember thinking that's what I want for her. That's how I want her to feel about herself when she grows up, because they just radiated this joy, this confidence. And I kind of pinned it back to they grew up in a church, and that's what I want. And so I decided to join a church, and that was when we were still in Lubbock. Found a church. Actually, my mother was going there at the time, and I decided to join. And from there, I kind of just kept going and going. And I thought at that point, it was great, and I'm going to do this for her. And it turned into salvation for myself also in doing that. So the more kids I had, the more involved I got. And then I realized that I could do this for me as well. And so.
And then you said you didn't want your daughter to grow up the way that you grew up.
Yeah.
What did that look like? So how did you grow up? Aside from the Catholic church.
Yes. Well, it started with, I had a great group of friends. I was a really smart kid. I was a really quiet kid. I was very shy, but I always kind of got invited to be with like the girls that made the good grades and that were really, I kind of fit in with a good group of people. But it was about the summer between 7th and 8th grade is when everything kind of went downhill. There was a transition. I can almost pinpoint the date to where there was a split, and I decided to go one way instead of follow the friends and stay with them. I decided I'm going to be this kind of person, and it's going to be my choice to do these things. And it all kind of went downhill from there. I got into the alcohol. I was like 14. Between 7th and 8th grade is when I started drinking regularly, and there was just a lot of not good choices that I made, and I didn't love myself, and I didn't want good things. It was kind of like I was choosing to be reckless just to see. I didn't want the pressure of having to be the good kid anymore, or I didn't want the pressure of having to try to keep up with others when I felt like I could never be that person. I don't have the things that person has. I don't have the support that person has. So I'm not going to try to be like them anymore. I was kind of into self-sabotage at that point. Yeah. And that's really what it came down to, is that I didn't want the pressure of doing the things. Cause I have always been kind of a perfectionist, and that I had a choice and the option to choose to whether I wanted to do good things or I wanted to not do good things. And so I chose the easier route, which at the time for a child, it seemed like the easier route, but it was not. It was just, like I said, self-sabotage, and it just took me down a road that I didn't want to go down.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of that was, because I think in my experiences, and still to this day, control is a big thing, because I felt so out of control as a child. Like my parents divorced, I couldn't control that. My mom died, I couldn't control that. And so there was all these little things, but I could control this choice or this action. Did you feel like maybe that was part of that?
Absolutely. It was absolutely that. It's that I didn't control where we were going to live. I couldn't control who I was going to be exposed to. I couldn't control any situation in my life, like whether we were gonna, stay in this house for a while or we were gonna have to move every 6 months. I couldn't control who was gonna come in and out of our home. I couldn't control what days I was allowed to go to my dad's or my mom's, or whether they wanted to share us or whether they were going to argue or not. And so it was a lot of that, to where I could make that pretty much my choices were limited to what I was able to do. And I made those decisions that I thought would be easiest. It was easiest to forget those things.
Yeah. And then, so now you're making these choices in middle school and you get into high school. Was there an event or something that kind of woke you up from all of this?
There was absolutely. And what happened was, because I had gotten into the drinking and I started making these choices, and I was just ready. I didn't care. I didn't care how it ended up. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to make it to my 18th birthday. And that didn't bother me at all, which was really, I was so lost. I was so lost and just had given up. When I was 16 years old, it was a sophomore year, spring break. I was hanging out at the park with a friend of mine, and she met up with two people that she had known. I didn't know them. Two boys, I think they were 18-ish. And so they decided they were going for spring break. They were going to go to the beach, to Corpus or something, South Padre maybe. And they're just like, hey, you want to come? So we're like, hey, let's jump in your car. I had nothing. I didn't have a purse. I didn't carry anything. I'm just like, hey, I'm going to get in this car and we're going to drive, 8 hours to go down to this beach. And then I remember a conversation, I remember a conversation about going into Mexico for whatever. And I didn't care. I'm like, cool, let's go do it. Let's go get in this car. So we get in this vehicle with these two boys that I've never met before. I knew of one of them and I knew the family. And it ended up being that they're really good dudes. They were lost as I was,
Yeah.
good people. And I still would, if I saw them today, I'd give them both a big hug. Like it's just not, there's no hard feelings at all. We were children and we were all in the same situation, but we get in this car, we stop at a gas station, they pick up alcohol, which is ridiculous because we were all little kids, and we start driving and we were drinking the whole time. And it was about 3 or 4 hours in, there was a car accident. I don't remember it. I remember about an hour before the accident, I think is what they said. I remember we ran out of gas and we were in the middle of nowhere and we had to literally walk to a gas station. And like, that wasn't a sign that maybe you should turn around. Didn't take it well. So walked to the gas station, got gas, filled, a little gas tank or whatever, walked back to the car, filled it up, drove it back, filled up the gas tank. And I remember leaving the gas station and everything kind of just went dark. And it turns out we were in an accident about an hour afterward. I had a seatbelt on, and the seatbelt actually saved my life. We were the only car on the road at the time. Luckily, it was a drunk driving accident that didn't involve any other vehicle. Nobody else was really injured except for me. Our vehicle rolled. And so the window, every time it rolled, I was on the asphalt here. So luckily, I had the seatbelt that kept me in the car because who knows what would have happened had I been ejected and possibly underneath. And from there, I was in the hospital. I woke up 3-4 days later. I think it was 3 days later, in a hospital, surrounded by family and then the friends and the family of the drivers and stuff. And just it was one of those moments to where God was like, you're not going. Like he slammed that door shut and he stopped us from getting, because who knows what would have happened had I made it there. I was a 16-year-old little girl trying to hang out at South Padre on spring break. Like those. Oh, I have a daughter and I pray for her all the time. This is not good. And so that happened there. And it was a turning point in that I'm not in control. I wanted to be. I wanted to just ruin everything. I wanted to stop everything. I hated the situation that I was in. I didn't like that I didn't have control of anything, like you had said. And this was my way to rebel. And God was like, no, I'm going to pluck you from this place and I'm going to make it difficult. Because at that point I had a head injury. Recovery was difficult. I wasn't able to go back to full-time school at all. I actually graduated high school from it was a half day thing. It was a secondary school, but I couldn't go back. I couldn't hang out with the friends that I was hanging out with. I couldn't be at those places anymore. I didn't leave the house really because I was sleeping regularly, or the recovery took years. And so it literally took those options from me, so that I had to really kind of do a lot of self-reflection, because I was in my head a whole lot at that point. I wasn't able to ignore it. From there, though, I knew it was like, I just knew that was God's way of saying, this needs to stop.
Yeah. And kind of like he almost forced you to stop. He was like, okay, now I'm not even giving you the option to do this.
You don't even have the option. You don't even have the option to ruin your own life. Like you're done with that. Now it's and so that was a big eye-opening moment, to where I realized that maybe I do have something to live for. Maybe there is a purpose, and it's bigger than me, and it doesn't have to be about me. And that was another thing too. I was so selfish at that point. I remember thinking, 'cause my mom had got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning from a hospital that was however many hours away. And she thought it was a prank call. They had to call her 3 times or more because she thought it was a prank call. She thought I was down the street at a friend's house. And she had no idea. And they had to get like having that guilt of knowing that as a mother, they're getting a phone call saying, don't rush because we don't know how it's going to happen. She didn't know if she was going to come pick me up or if she was going to come have to just, claim a child. And that, I get goosebumps thinking about it. I can't even imagine how terrible that must have been for her and what I put her through because I was being selfish. And it was just, it's hard to remember those things. And so now I can look back and think that was pride, and that was selfishness, and that was just not wanting to trust that I can get through these things. And I didn't need to do it alone, which was really important. And then from there, I kind of, you would think that at that point it was just, it all got better, but it wasn't. It got better, and then it didn't, and then it did, and then I was 18, I was 21, kind of went up and down again, and then you fall back, like you are saved here, but then you slowly start to track back. I think at that point that was so dramatic. It was such a big part of the beginning of the story, really, of the redemption, and I didn't really understand it at the time. I thought that I did. But you fall back, and it's easy to fall back when you get back into the same situation, around the same people that you were, and it's just, you don't believe that even though those kinds of things can happen, that I am worthy and I am saved, because that guilt and those reminders of who I was and what I did keep you from fully believing that you deserve to be loved, that you deserve to be forgiven, because we don't deserve to be loved, and we don't deserve to be forgiven. And that was where I was confused, in that because I thought that I didn't deserve it, that meant that I couldn't get it. I guess is how I would say. I don't know,
I think that's very powerful.
From there, and then I joined the church when I was 21. Was when we found out we were going to have this child. And at that point it was like, oh no, choices that I made have led me to another moment of, it's not about me. And that is when I kind of got back into the church and started realizing and started learning and really diving into what the word is, what the gospel is, what Jesus says for me. And it's really awesome to know, because one of my favorite Bible verses is it's in Galatians. I love the book of Galatians. It's very short, but it's also has so many good things in there. Galatians 2:20, I was crucified with Christ, and it's not I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And that really resonates with me personally, because anything that I've done before, that's gone. Like, maybe I am still that person, but I don't have to be. It's not about me anymore. And that takes the pressure off of me, and my need for control, and my anxiety about all the mistakes that maybe I have made, and all the things that I don't want to remember about myself, all the things that people could bring up and be like, you were this person, or you were that person, or this is, like who you were. And I can think back to that Galatians verse and think it's not about me anymore. It's about Christ who lives in me. It's about, I have the Holy Spirit within me now, and I don't have to be that person anymore. Like, I can, though, that's the choice that I can make, is that yes, I am a selfish person, and I combat that with, it's not about me. And I love that it's not about me, that it's up to me, because I know that there's no way that I could ever be righteous enough, or I could ever be worthy enough, or deserving enough. And you don't have to be. And that's Galatians 2:21. The verse right after is, if righteousness could be gained, then Jesus died for nothing, which, we don't have to gain it. We don't have to earn it. There's no way we could. And that is so freeing. And that really opened up my heart and my mind to the fact that I am loved. Because it's a gift, and it's not something I have to earn or deserve or be worthy of. And that's really where the change came in. And I realized that, yes, I can do this. And yes, I can, I can be a good parent. I can be a good Christian. I can be a good person. I have a testimony I can share without shame or guilt or embarrassment, because God gave me these things and he saved me from these things for a reason, for a purpose, and whether it's just to help one person get through, or whether it's to help others feel like, oh, well, if she can feel saved, then maybe I can feel saved because I'm not that, or, and that's not really a healthy way to think about it. But if it can help someone, then it's just, it's a story to be shared.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Really. I have a friend of mine once said, it was just a random thing she brought up in a Bible study. And it has resonated with me so much. And it's like my favorite thing to say. I didn't ask her permission, so I don't want to name, but it was great because she says that whenever she has these thoughts in her head that come up, she will say out loud, "Thank you, Jesus, for reminding me what you saved me from." And then you move on. And anytime you get that guilt or that shame, or, oh, remember that one time I said that one thing, or remember I did that one thing, or I kind of have added at the end of that to her idea is, thank you for reminding me of what you saved me from, and also what you have already forgiven me for.
Yeah.
And I'm already forgiven for those things. Even when they pop up and the guilt sets in, I don't have to feel the shame. Even like he has saved me from them, but also forgiven me for them, so that I don't have to feel the embarrassment or the shame or the pressure or the weight or I can't move on from that because I'm stuck there.
Yeah. And my mind is just turning, because you said so many beautiful things that I think so many of us struggle with, myself included, especially if people who kind of come to Jesus later in life, like myself and you, where I think back on all of the sinful past that I have and all these bad choices that I make. And a lot of times I feel like what you're saying, it's like, well, I can't say this because I did this in the past. And it's kind of like that whole, the guilt, the shame, I feel like a hypocrite because I'm saying this, but I did something else. But it's like your Bible verse that you said, that it's Christ who lives in us now. Like, we are forgiven from our past, and we don't have to feel that shame, and we can move forward. And I had a friend too that said, I forget what it was about. It was something like totally ridiculous. And she was like, well, remember when you said this 3 years ago? And it's like, well, okay, well, I don't agree with what I said then. Like, it's okay, because I'm a different person now, because one, I'm allowed to change my mind. And two, I am a completely different person now than I was even a year ago, because my faith has grown over time, and my walk with the Lord is just getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and we're growing and gaining more wisdom.
Absolutely.
So of course, we're going to change, and
and that it's okay to say things that, and that's a part too. Like was nervous to share the gospel with others. I don't know enough about it. I'm not in a position, like, I didn't grow up in it. I don't really know. But then I realized, it's about planting the seed. And I like that idea too, planting the seed. You can plant the seed, you can provide the water, you can provide the soil, invite people to church, that kind of thing. But God is the only one who can breathe life. And it's not for us to save people. We don't have the ability to save people, but we do have the ability to plant the seed. And that's all we are called to do. We are not called to make sure that they get there. We can just help them along the way. And that, relieving that pressure is also something that's been like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can go teach. I can go talk about these things, because I don't have to know the answers.
Right.
I just have to plant the seed. And sometimes that seed is planted 6 feet under, and the person never talks to me again, but at least it's there.
And I think we feel a lot of pressure at that as moms too, especially now, working and, in the church and raising Christian babies. It's like we kind of feel that pressure of, we need to develop this. But like you said, it's something that we can do. We can plant seeds. We can nurture it.
Yes.
We can provide all the things that we can do, but ultimately
the environment,
it's not us.
But it's not up to us. We cannot breathe life into that seed. And so that's something that's also, I think that was my thing. It's so freeing. It's freeing to know that it's not up to me. It's freeing to know that it's Christ who lives in me. And it's freeing to know that I don't get to breathe life into that. It's not for me, because I do not have a green thumb, let me tell you. I cannot even keep aloe vera plants alive. Like, I don't understand. The cactus will die. But, that's just not my gift. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to know that I don't have to, I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the one who has to make those choices. And I think that goes back to the way I was raised. Like nobody was gonna do it for me. And I kind of felt alone in that I had all this pressure and responsibility to be the adult when I wasn't, or responsibility to make the good choices because what I was seeing was not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt isolated and like I'm the only one who was going to take care of me, or I was the only one that was going to put me first. And so I did. And I wasn't capable of doing that. And I shouldn't have been, but knowing that I don't. So that's a personal experience for me, is that knowing that I no longer have to be responsible. I'm the only one that has to be responsible. And sometimes it's hard to share responsibility, even like in my marriage and as a parent and those kind of things, because I'm just was brought up that way, kind of
Yeah.
where I needed to do it because nobody else was going to. I needed to take care of everything and I needed to be responsible for everything because I'm so anxious about what happens when I let somebody else do it. Because when I let somebody else do it as a child, it didn't always end up that well.
Yeah.
And
And that goes
so,
back to that control aspect
yeah,
as well.
that control aspect of wanting, if nobody was going to do it for me, I needed to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the freedom of just the weight off my shoulders of Jesus has got this. Like God's got this. I don't have to do anything. Like I just have to follow. I just have to be a sheep and I'm okay with being a sheep,
Yeah.
Maybe I'm that 100th sheep that he has to go find every couple years, but that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. I remember we did a study on Job recently, and it was so interesting to hear the different women and the different ways we relate to it. And it kind of threw me off a little bit because we all, like, as you read, not Job, I'm sorry, Jonah and the whale.
Mm-hmm.
And we all kind of relate to Jonah and being called and not doing these things, or being called and choosing not to, but then you got to go to these people and you don't really want to. And so much of that story, I relate to the Ninevites more so than Jonah. And that perspective of seeing that I was saved, even though maybe people didn't want me to be, even though I was not deserving at all. And I was just thrown into, hey, do you want to be saved by Jesus? And I'm just like, yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and do this. Even though my whole life, it was a different kind of exposure. And there was not that work that was done to save those Ninevites. Like Jonah just had to show up. And guess what? They decided to follow Christ and now they're saved. And he was like, why have I worked so hard? And so it's just a different perspective, I think, growing up outside of the church versus growing up inside of the church.
I
And
like that.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was more like the Ninevite too. And it's funny because I don't think everyone knows the complete story of Jonah. I think
Yeah.
even like the Bible story, when we tell it to the kids, it's
Yes.
Jonah disobeys and he gets swallowed and he gets spits out and he goes to
And then
Nineveh.
obeys. Yeah.
But he gets mad. He gets upset. Just like you said, he's like, I've done all of this and they're sinners and they're living in this town and they're horrible. They deserve to die. And you're just going to forgive them? Like
Yeah.
so powerful.
That story resonated with me a whole lot because I'm just like, I'm a Ninevite, and that's where I saw myself. And granted, they didn't, and they also were saved, but then they went back, and then they're saved, and then the whole story is so long, and it's a continual process.
Mhm.
And so it's really eye-opening to the grace and the forgiveness and the redemption. And my favorite, like, just redemption
Mhm.
is possible because you don't have to earn it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be worthy
Yeah.
because you're loved no matter what.
Mhm.
And so
I'm reading, I'm doing the Bible recap. So it's kind of it's not like cover to cover, but it's chronological order of the Bible. And I'm in Joshua right now. So I just finished like Deuteronomy and Leviticus and all the hard ones. And yeah, exactly. But it reminds me a lot because, I mean, God is forgiving, but he also hates sin. He doesn't hate the sinner. He loves the sinner, but he hates the sin, right? And so over and over, you see him telling Moses or Joshua that this is a sinful person. And because I know what I have brought you through, you're not quite ready to say no to this sin or say no to this temptation. So I need you to remove that sinner so you guys can stay pure. And to me, I feel like and kind of how you were saying in your story, how you kind of went back and forth and you started hanging out with, AKA the, quote unquote, the bad crowd again, that it's amazing when we are involved in a church and when we surround ourselves with people that are full of wisdom, that are further along in the Christian walk than we are, that can guide us and nurture us and grow us in that direction, versus hanging out with people that are making bad choices when we're still developing. I think that's crucial, that we stay on that right path and surround ourselves with people that will help us stay the good.
Yeah. And even choices, maybe they're not bad choices. Maybe it's just temptation for me. It's not necessarily a bad choice for everyone.
Right.
It's just one of the weaknesses that I have, one of the temptations that I have. And so I think that's also because I don't have to be good for everyone. Not everyone's going to like me. And I'm kind of okay with that. Not really, but I have to be okay with that. It's just one of those things that, I'm not made for everyone, and nobody's made for everyone, and that's okay. And so some of the temptations that I have, I need to be pulled away from certain people who are good people, or that you're not, but they're just not for me. And I'm just not for others. Like, I'm just really want to be friends with that person, but maybe there's something in my life that they're not ready for. And so it's just, it's kind of like you said, Jesus, we have to be around the crowd that's going to be better for us. And it's not the sinner, it's the sin. It's the temptation that needs to be pulled away. So not every friendship is going to work out. Not every relationship is going to work out, but it's not the person or the people involved. It's just the temptations that they have to.
Right. Yeah. And not saying that we always need to avoid people that, are doing that, but again, I think it goes back to where you are. I think back when I was new to Christianity, and if I would have hung out with my sins and my temptations in that world, it would have been much harder for me to distinguish good from bad, or the right choices from the not so great choices, because I didn't have the knowledge that I have today. However, I know that I can be around that and help guide people because I am stronger in my faith.
I think being a parent, because I honestly, I never thought that I would be a parent. As a teenager, I was like, no way, I'm not gonna, nobody's gonna put that responsibility on me. That'd be horrible. But now that I am a parent, actually, I have 4 children. That's a lot of kids.
You go from no, it's never gonna happen, to now 4.
I went from never to a lot, and so it's really kind of given me a perspective of this is, not exactly how God must feel, but a little bit of a glimpse of how God feels about his children when they make mistakes. It's not you, it's the mistake. And I'm sorry. And I forgive you because I love you. And I'm going to love you through your mistakes. And I'm going to love you through these hard times. And I'm going to love you through potty training. And I'm going to love you through teenage years. And I'm going to love you, and it's through the growth, and you see them growing, and it's amazing. And so being a parent has really kind of shown me what it's like for God's love to love me anyway. Because I would love my children no matter what. And his love for me is so much more than I could ever love my children, which I know that and I hear that, but it's like, I don't know how that's possible, but it's not for me to know the possibilities of God. And so it just, it blows my mind that could happen, because, I would do anything for my kids, and I would forgive them for any mistake or any choice or any, there's never anything they could do that's going to get rid of me. I'm going to be there and I'm going to help you through it. And having those children, having these kids, and knowing that is really eye-opening to how God feels about me.
Hey friends, would you do me a favor? Would you subscribe to the show by clicking that subscribe button wherever you're listening? It makes a huge difference for the Go and Tell podcast community. I would also love for you to share this show with a friend. I know some of you found this show because a friend recommended it to you, so thank you for listening and being here, for subscribing and sharing and showing all your love and support. Thank you. I also want to use this time to share my very favorite sparkling water that I have been drinking recently. It is mad tasty. It has 20 milligrams of broad spectrum hemp extract, zero sugar. All the sweeteners is infused from natural fruit essence. They're under 15 calories per can, gluten-free, vegan, and there are now 4 delicious flavors that are just so yummy. So if you go to madtasty.com, you can use my code LaurenG10 for 10% off your order. So go to madtasty, that's MADTASTY.com, and use my code Lauren, LaurenG10 for 10% off. Music was created for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. Now let's rejoin the conversation. Was there, I know you said it was kind of this gradual process. Was there another turning point from the accident? Was there another spot in your life where you really felt like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm not going to hang out with this crowd anymore. Was it motherhood? Was having a child
it was motherhood that kind of really pushed me. My husband's family is very involved in their churches. And so that kind of inspired me a whole lot, being around them a lot more. And it was they were very calm, and it was kind of not predictable. It was, I say this, but they would be like, no way. Like they have a lot of kids too. And so it's just like, I'm sure they felt their life was chaos, but for me, it was so, it was so calm and just consistent. And their faith
were they married?
No,
so they were divorced too.
They were divorced too, but they both in their own area, they're both remarried, and had been for decades. And so going to visit his mom and that part of the family, and they're very involved in the church, and it was just very comforting to know that they're their consistency. They're just the same person. Every year we go, they're the same person, and they're in the same position. They're in the same place. When you talk to them, they're going to say like the same things. Like, it's still, their faith is so strong that it's just going to be, it's a comfort to have that consistency. Because I wasn't raised with consistency. I didn't know, like, everything was always changing, and I didn't know who would, it was kind of a mess when I was growing up. It was inconsistent, and I thrive on knowing things, obviously. And then going to his dad's house, and then they were out in Lubbock, and they had a lot of the younger kids, but they still had that same, when you went, you knew you could talk to them about these things, and they were going to always lead it back to Christ. They were going to always lead it back to this. And there was never any judgment on either side. There was never any, like, it wasn't uncomfortable to have deep conversations for any of the time. And that was so great to have that through them. And they helped me a lot in my walk with Christ, just giving me the confidence that you're loved. You're loved even though. And so they helped me on my walk, and my husband helped me on my walk also. And so it's really seeing God's hand in all of those things, like randomly meeting this person, and then all of a sudden here you are, and that's part of your walk.
Do you think, I know we talked about like the control and perfectionism. Did you ever have that sense of just wanting to be loved and striving for people to love you and accept you?
I think that I did. I think that's what it came down to. But at the same time, I was so, I don't know, just stubborn and prideful, and needing someone else was so hard that I decided not to, if that makes sense. Like, I know that I am a certain way. And so in order to combat that, I chose to be defiant toward it. Like, I wanted to, instead of needing people, I wanted to be strong enough to do it on my own, or I was going to make it a point to not need anything. I did not need the other people to help me, or to give me that comfort, or to give me that love. I was going to avoid it at all costs because I needed it so much, if that makes sense. It was just a defiance towards those needs. And so I think that's what kept me up and down for so long. And then finally letting go and realizing that it's okay. It's okay to want, like, feelings Feelings are like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna leave those over there because those are we don't know about that. Like I don't do the feels. But and then I realized now, yes, I do, and that's okay. And it's okay to have feelings. Still working through that part of it, of being able to feel loved and to want to be loved, but I know that I am. And so that's where I am right now, is that I am loved, and that's okay. And I can be loving towards others. And then especially like with the children, you know, the kids that I have, and then wanting to go and to serve at the church and work in the youth because I want to love on these children. And yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions. One I do want to ask first is, what is God doing for you now? What do you see happening now in your life that God is just having a hand in and helping you through?
Oh, right now, well, we just did the whole quarantine thing, which was a whole lot of fun. But we are ready to get back out, and not serving was so hard. Not being able to go and throw my kids into the childcare and have them experience other people and those kinds of things and learning from others. I'm really excited right now to start getting back. We're slowly getting back. We did VBS last week. We're going on Sundays again. And so I'm really excited about teaching again, about volunteering again, and getting back into the Bible studies. I started the Wednesday mornings. What is it called?
Seamless.
Seamless. Yes. I'm so excited. I've only went 1 week, but I am so excited. I've heard so many good things about this story. And I'm really excited to dive back into that one because of just the understanding, the knowledge of tying everything together and how it's all on one thread. And I really am excited about that. So I think, and I've met a lot of new people there. And so there's a lot of new stories to hear. And then I can share a little bit of mine, I guess. And then, yeah, so I'm really excited. God's opening the doors of getting back out. That's going to be fun.
So if you could, and I ask this a lot of times in different podcasts, if you could talk to your old self, or if you could, if there was a girl, let's say your daughter, that was going through, hopefully not your daughter going through the similar situations, but if there is someone who is in a lot of the similar experiences that you have faced, or the feelings of, you know, being out of control, or, you know, resisting, or all of these different things, what would you tell this person looking for yourself?
That's a hard one because the emotional part of it, I think I still am processing those things. So I don't know how well I could share those things, being in, because I'm still dealing with those. I have identified it. I have put it in that box and I know what it is. But having to actually work through it and feel those emotions that come with it is hard for me. But I think if I could talk back to my old self, it is not permanent. This is temporary. This is just going to be part of your story. You don't have to be here. You don't have to live in this. This isn't all there is. And knowing that it would be hard, like knowing myself, if somebody said, you don't have to control it, it's not going to be about you, I would have said, well, yes, it is. You know, like I would have resisted. I don't think anybody could have said things to me at that point. But I just think of who I was as a child, and knowing that what I needed was just someone to be there all the time, even though, because I was going to resist and I was going to deny it, and I was going to probably, you know, just avoid anyone telling me that it was going to be okay. But what I needed and what I would want to do for sure is to just be constant, just be consistent. Like that one kid in class that's just, you know, that you think there's no hope for that kid, you know, to be there for them anyway, to love them anyway, and to show them, even though maybe we're not going to be friends forever, or maybe they're going to be mean to me, or maybe they're going to like blow me off for years. I would be okay with that now, because just for them to think back 10 years later and be like, you know what, that person was consistent. That person was constantly coming after me, even though I didn't deserve it. And just having that reminder, if there are people like that, and that God's love is even more so than that person. So I think what I would just it would take time. It's not a magic phrase that you can say or one conversation you can have that's going to pull certain people out of their own heads. It's going to take time. And so I think being around people for an extended amount of time and just constantly checking in on them and constantly letting them know that you're there and constantly, reminding them, even if they don't want it. I think that is the biggest impact you can have on somebody who was raised like me, somebody who thought like I was, somebody who was there. And in all my mistakes, like I could never have saved myself from myself. Yeah. Like if I could go back in time, I would still have made those decisions, even though I said, hey, don't do this. Don't get in that car. Like, don't talk to those people. Don't fall into that trap. Don't allow yourself to be okay with these things that are not okay.
Yeah. What you want is what you were lacking. And I think that a lot of times, I don't know if you followed Enneagram stuff or if you know what your Enneagram number is, but our Enneagram number is from a past hurt that has developed into who we are today. And it's so interesting and fascinating.
I'm a 5. I'm a solid 5. So it was funny because my sister sent me these things and she's like, you're absolutely a 1. Yeah. And I was like, I was reading over it and I'm like, I am a 1. But then I took the test and I was like, it said 5. And I was like, okay. And then I realized, yes, I'm absolutely a 5. I'm a 5. It's all about information. It's the information, the seeking knowledge, and just wanting knowledge, just wanting to learn, just wanting to have it kind of black and white in your face, and this is the answer, and you don't have to have the feelings. so it kind of makes more sense. Like and then because 1 is more about the organization and the control and the leader, and then I realized I don't really necessarily want to be the leader. I don't really want to be in control. I was, and in certain situations I am, but that's not who I am as a person. That was a situational thing. That was where I was, and that's how I handled certain things. But really deep down, I'm a 5. I like to learn. I'm just gonna be the nerd with my little statistics and do all my stuff in the background, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But then, after you do those tests, you're like, I have been that person for my whole life, and I resisted trying to be that person. I wanted to be someone else.
Yeah. And it's funny, if you've looked at the Enneagram wheel, like a 5, for instance, I don't know, it makes me wonder if it pings to a 1. Have you seen how they have lines coming off of it?
It's funny. It pings to, I believe, a 7 and an 8.
Okay, because it's like an area of growth, or like if you're, on the negative end of whatever number you are and you're experiencing this.
It's funny because my mother is, I believe, the 7, and then my husband is the 8. Okay. And the 5 pings to 7 and 8. And really? So, yes. And I think I've read something about how at your worst, you're going to get the worst habits of that one. And at your best, you're going to get the best habits of that one. And so it's very interesting to me that the 2 strongest influences in my life are on the same line. Like, I can see that. Yeah.
Okay. So the 3 questions that I ask everyone at the end of the podcast is, what are you reading? What are you loving? And what is making you laugh? So what are you reading? You have 4 kids and a baby, so maybe you're reading Seamless.
I am doing Seamless, and I'm really excited about that one. I do want to throw out there, have you read The Day the Crowns Quit? The Day the Crowns Quit is an amazing children's book. It's hilarious and it's fantastic. So you should look into that one. The other one that's a favorite for my kids is Rock, Paper, Scissors. It's by the same author, Drew something, and I can't think of what it is, something with a P. But those 2 books are classics. They're amazing. And then when you have boys, so they will love the Rock, Paper, Scissors book. And then The Day the Crowns Quit is really fun too. So you should look into that. But Seamless, I'm super excited to learn, because there's a lot of knowledge in there. It's a lot of black and white. This happened this time and it ties into this. And a lot less of the, how did you feel about that? And so I'm pretty excited about that one too. Something
you're loving. What are you loving?
I'm loving?
And it could be anything. It could be food. It could be clothes. It could be.
Is it okay that I'm just kind of, there's not really anything specific that I'm loving right now? Is it okay that I'm not really loving things? Yeah, I am excited about getting back out into the whole post-quarantine thing, because we took it pretty seriously with the new baby and everything. And it was, the kids were virtual the whole time and they weren't really excited
That's right.
about
So
it.
you had, because he's 6 months old, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, so you were in the thick of it.
Yes. We were nervous because during the pregnancy, of course, you're more susceptible to things, and so I was terrified for myself. And then when he was newborn, it's scary because you don't know, we don't have information, and so it's just during those months. So it was the whole 9 months of being pregnant, and then now he's 6 months, and so I'm feeling better about it now because he's gotten his vaccinations up to a certain point. I have the vaccination, and we're still nursing, and so he's protected and those kinds of things. And so that's really so now I'm finally able to go to Target and walk in circles. That's, I really just want to do that.
So that's what you're loving right now.
That's what I'm loving right now. I'm loving the
Target.
idea of going to get a coffee and walking around Target for no reason whatsoever.
Absolutely. That is like, and people don't get it. Like there were many days where, especially when you have a baby, I was like, I would bring my headphones, I would plug it in, and I'd listen to a podcast or music and just aimlessly walk through Target.
It's a happy place. There's joy in there for some reason. I don't know what it is. So, yeah.
And so many times I wouldn't buy a single thing, but just walking through and just perusing every single aisle and being like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cute. Or it's just
something about that store. I think, it's something about that store that's just, it's free and it's calm and it's,
I wonder if we were to sit back, how many moms come in there without their kids and just do the same thing. I bet
it's like 50% of the shoppers there are just wandering aimlessly. Yeah.
Anytime I see like not a single mom, just like a mom with no kids, like I don't know why I'm assuming she's a mom, but it's a woman by herself. I'm like, kids, nope, we're not going to go down that aisle. We're going to give her a minute.
Yeah.
We're going to go around.
Exactly.
Be quiet. She's having a moment. I get it. I feel it. She needs to be by herself.
Exactly.
Yeah. And anytime, I don't know, like whenever my husband and I want to go for dinner without the kids, I'm like, we can't go any place that is like
with kids,
mostly kid friendly. Like, no, we can't go there because
this is our time. This is our freedom.
Exactly. It's not that I don't love kids and I don't love your kids. It's just I don't want to be reminded of kids in this moment.
I don't want that to be where my brain goes, because then you're in mom mode and then you're thinking of those things and you're looking at, can I help them? Or maybe she needs help with that. Or maybe they, like, I don't want to do that. It's okay to separate from that for just a little bit. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, so then what is making you laugh right now, aside from my child who is waving on screen? Has come in.
What makes me laugh right now, it's really fun. Two of my siblings, brother and sister of mine, were I started a text thread months ago, and we just send each other random memes, and it just makes my whole day better. And I love being able to find things that I know they will understand, because it's usually just inside joke stuff. It's really not that funny, or it really doesn't mean anything. But knowing them and them knowing us, like just how well we know each other, that we know exactly how that person's going to respond. Like I know exactly how my sister's going to respond, or exactly how my brother's going to respond. Yeah. And so it's really great. I actually found out the other day, we were talking about how hot it is. It's like, I can't use my oven because my whole house gets hot. Like I'm going to just get an Instapot the whole time, like Instapot everything. So send me your recipes. And my younger brother, he's 30. Started talking about all the dishes that he makes in his Instapot, and I was like, whoa, because he's just a single dude, right? He's just a single dude, kind of lives by himself or whatever. And I was like, you can cook? Like, what? And then he started going off about how he makes all these things, and like he makes his own tamales. And we were just, my sister and I are both like, when did you become the better cook in the family? Like, when did that happen? Like, and then it was started, we were cracking up because now he's the tamale lady. I'm just like, that's amazing. But yeah. And so, yeah, those things, like just those little conversations that we have, and just, it's not even a conversation. It's just a random, meme that we found, or just a random sentence or picture that we saw, but knowing that they understand it in such a deeper way than it was, And so that totally brings me joy. It's just having those conversations with him.
Yeah, that's so fun. Well, Jamie, I know our guest, but thank you so much. You have been such a sweet friend, and thank you for opening up and being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I just have confidence knowing that this is going to reach somebody.
I hope it does. I hope so. That's one of those seeds. Maybe it's the 6 feet under seed, but maybe it's something else. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jamie. I love you so much. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Go and Tell podcast with Lauren Greci. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe, comment, leave a review, and share with your friends. Music was created for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. I'll be back here next week with another great conversation. Thanks for listening today, friends.